Hey gang, welcome back to Snake River Fly. Gonna do another one here in our vertical jig series. This one is going to be our peanut bugger jig. How about that? Our version of the circus peanut, obviously circus peanut, peanut envy, fantastic bugs. Anybody that's thrown meat and has fished those bugs know it's a really great fly. Ours is a little bit different, utilize some of our materials, and then also what we're going to do is we're going to show you how we're going to make this thing jig. I've already tied the back end of this, just a saltwater O'Shaughnessy and a number 4. Got a two-tone Marabou tail here, a little yellow chenille, and some copper hydro hackle and laser legs. I've already done that. The next step is going to be to articulate this, and we're going to go ahead and kind of just repeat the same steps. So here we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to articulate this fly with some backing. You can do this with bead-along wire, you can do this with stainless wire, or jigs from Spawn, that kind of thing, but we like the backing, just it moves better. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push my bobbin threader, my bobbin threader up through that hook, and then I'm going to take a 6-inch piece of backing. This is 30 pound, you could use 20. Put that through there, through the bobbin threader. I'm going to pull that down through the hook eye, and then we've cut that bobbin threader so we can get that off of there. Okay, now I'm just going to do a half hitch on here. I'm going to even these out and take my tag ends and push them back through that loop. This kind of works to help keel the fly. Okay, if you can see on there, that's a half hitch on there. And I'll do this on the top because we want this fly to ride, for the better part, yellow or lighter side down. So by putting that half hitch in there and having 2 strands come out, I can kind of control that a little bit. It's going to spin a bit because we're on backing. It's not going to stay in perfect line, but for the better part, it's going to fish like that. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and put some beads as a spacer in between our 2 hooks. And once again, like the Mr. Wiggles, the way we articulate these, I'm going to take my bobbin threader, and I've got some glass beads here in red with pearl, and I'm going to thread those onto that bobbin threader like so. 3 of them. You can get away with 2, you can probably get away with 1, but sometimes these will break. So I've got my beads on there, and now I'm going to put both strands of the backing through that bobbin threader, and I'm just going to slide the beads off the bobbin threader onto the backing. Okay, and on 30 pound it takes a minute to tug these out. It's a tight fit in there. 20 pound would be easier, but it's fall in southeastern Idaho, so we are likely to run into some bigger fish. So there we go. We've got our back end done on this. Our half hitch is there. A lot of times I'll take that spot, and so my half hitch doesn't come undone or loosen, and I'll just put a drop of head cement or Zappa right there. And that'll keep this keeled for the next hook. Okay? So we'll set that off to the side. Now we're going to take a number 2 O'Shaughnessy saltwater hook. And what I've done here, and you can weight these as heavy as you want. Remember this vertical jigging system is a dry line, long leader, and heavy weighted fly versus heavy sink tip line, short leader, and non-weighted fly. So I put a cone on here, I also put a big bead in here. You can make these as heavy or as light as you want. For this one, I'm fishing out of a boat. I'm fishing some pretty deep banks is the plan. So I want a fairly heavy front end on this. And I've got some Semper flies, nano in here. This stuff's super strong. It'll hold everything in place really well. So just build up my head so I can keep that bead from sliding all the way back. And now what I'll do is we want this hook to ride in theory like this, okay? Hook point up. So I'm going to flip that back over. And with that in mind, our ventral color, or our belly, is going to be yellow up on top, and our brown or dorsal color is going to be on the bottom. Just glued myself to myself there. So I'm going to tie this right on top. Got a little bit of sniffle going on here. And I'll work my way back. Got a little bit of zap on there that stiffened it up, so I have to manipulate this just a touch. I'll get some more wraps on here and then I'll spin that around. Right up on top. A little sloppy there, but you get the gist. Okay? So in theory, this fly is going to ride like this. Okie doke. I'm going to go ahead and leave my backing hanging out the front here and start working my way forward with my materials. So now we're going to take Marabou top and bottom two-tone like a JJ Special. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with brown, but I want to show you kind of how to separate this Marabou. The good, the bad, and the ugly, or something like that. Anyway, I don't want this tip in here because it's got a vein, and I don't want this big heavy stuff down in here, so I'm going to prep this feather by removing that stuff, use that for something else. And then I don't want this little vein here at the end to foul, so I'm going to trim that out of the center as well. And now I've got a really nice prepped piece of Marabou here that is going to set in there, and it won't have that end to foul. And I've already done that with some brown here. Put the brown on first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this hook over, and I want my brown to be on this side. Slide it right in there like so. I want this to be about half the length of that back hook. A little pinch technique here, where I'm pinching the thread in between my thumb and my index finger, or my pointer finger, and I'm strapping that down on what will be the bottom, okay? So that's going to ride something like that. And by getting rid of that stem in there, I'm not going to get that fouling as often as I would if I would have left that little fine tip stem in there. Okay, we'll flip this over. I'm going to take our prepped yellow feather. This is going to be the bottom of the fly. So our lighter color is going to be in there. And we get my length set like so. They're all going to flow together while we're fishing it. Same thing, go over loose like that to strap it on top, or I could do that pinch where I'm pinching it between my pointer finger and my thumb and then pulling straight down. And that'll keep it on top and or bottom or side, depending on where you want to place it. Some securing wraps in there, like so. Okay, now I'll just cut these tag ends off. I'm not worried about wrapping that all the way to the front because I'm going to add some more stuff, and I don't want this fly real bulky per se. I want it a little thinner. Excuse me, got the sniffleupagus today. And I'll strap that down. If I want, I can come back just a touch, just to give myself a little bit more room, like so. So I've got my yellow on the bottom. Okay, now we're going to take our copper hydro hackle. You could use brown on this, gold, whatever, time in a bunch of colors. This time of year I really like brown, copper, yellow. Brown trout around here seem to really like this color in the fall, and I've just trimmed a little off the tip, and I'm just going to tie in about a 1/4 inch of that I trimmed off right on top. Basically I'm making a woolly bugger out of this, just using this synthetic hydro hackle. And notice I've got my fibers facing backwards, so that should wrap a little bit nicer, cleaner. And now I'm just going to take some good old-fashioned medium yellow chenille. You could use a flash chenille in here, but we're getting plenty of flash for my liking with the hydro. So I'm just using a plain old cotton chenille. It absorbs water pretty well. Pretty good body material as far as just filling in some of the gaps in there. Okay, so I've got those two on there. And now I'm going to go ahead and come back up forward, wrapping that backing down right up behind that bead. And now I'll take a clouser eye. This is going to be a pretty heavy bug, okay? You could do this. We've tied a few of them with just, and we'll show you that, with just the lead eyes. Sometimes I'll tie them with just a cone. Sometimes I'll just use a bead. But I really like eyes on a streamer. And remember, what we're doing with this vertical jigging or dry line streamer fishing is we're not looking at the weight of the line to carry the fly down to where the fish are feeding and then doing a big swing. We want this fly to land in a pocket, you know, right in their bedroom where they're living, and they have a split second to decide whether they're going to chomp this thing or they let it go. Okay, so we're just banging pockets with this. Okay, structure, banks, logs, limbs, rocks, any little pool like that. And we're covering a lot of water, and we're just putting it in there for 4 or 5 strips, pulling it back out, and jamming the next spot. Okay, so I've got my lead eyes on here. At this point, I'd probably put a little zappa gap on here if I was tying it for the bins. For me, like most of the time, I'll lose it in the bushes before it comes apart. So I won't worry about that. I haven't had these fall apart like this. That gives you one more layer of security. Also, that backing is going to fill in that gap that we didn't have any material. Okay, so now we're going to take our rubber legs. This is a laser leg. I think this is a smoke jumper, Brandon?
Yes, sir.
Smoke jumper, and these come in strips. You know, just like any other rubber leg. But a handy way to tie in these legs in the front is instead of cutting them away from these tabs on the end, I am going to leave the tab on the end. I'm using 4 legs here, and leave those tabs, and that way I won't have these crazy legs all over the place to try to work my hackle and my chenille through. And so I'll just kind of split this in the middle, lay it right on top, and I'm going to do a loose wrap, check my length, and pull a little bit more of that. We'll trim these a little bit, and I'm just going to leave that right on top. And you can see that tag keeps them all together. And now I'll just come forward like so. Leave my thread right here behind the eyes. So you can see I've got these rubber legs, 4 pieces tied on top with the tabs. So now what we'll do is we'll take our chenille, and just like a woolly bugger, we're just going to build our body forward. I can pull that tab there, cover up this gap right behind them. This will prop the legs out to the side. And now I'll go forward like so. I'm just going to build a little bit of bulk right up behind that eye where my thread is. This looks a lot like the old crappie jigs I used to fish when I was a kid. Now we'll just tie off that chenille. If I wouldn't have put the bead head and the cone on the front, we'd have got a few more wraps. This front body would be a little longer that way. That out of the way. Maybe one more cup of coffee was needed this morning. Okay, I've secured the yellow chenille. Just going to trim that. And now we're going to take our hydro, and I'm just going to palmer this forward. Same thing, I'll do one behind the laser legs, like so. Pull the laser legs over the top, put another wrap right in front of them. I'm going to preen this material as I go. A lot of our bugs we don't use the chenille for, but on this particular peanut bugger we do. Got 2 wraps in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump right in front of the eyes, and I'm going to get 4 or 5 good wraps here. And you can see how all these fibers face forward because there's a small ramp right there with that backing. Pull it tight, and now I'm going to comb those back and get another wrap right in front of it. I'm going to twist the hydro a little bit so my fibers are facing backwards, and I'm going to fill in this gap behind the bead with 3 or 4 good wraps of hydro. This stuff's really tough, so I can reef on it and I can fill in this gap. It's going to cover all that stuff around that lead eye. I'll pull it tight while it's down, and this will build the front of that fly for us. Getting a little thick, so I'm just going to jump and tug it right there. Okay, now I'll do a little wrap here. A rip wrap, rippity doo. Half a dozen wraps behind. Pull everything back and get some good securing wraps in front of that. This thing's going to be banging on rocks, banging into banks, banging into stumps. I want this guy to be tough. I clip off my copper hydro hackle tight, and now I've got, there's your next bug. Okay, as far as the rubber legs go, we can take care of those at the very end. This is just going to be a pretty simple whip finish here. Once again, this fly is intended to be on a long leader, 9 foot, depending on the water clarity, size of fish, anywhere from 3x 9 foot leader to 0x. But a 9 footer, and I'm going to tie it on a loop so I get a lot of movement. I'm going to put about 52 whip finishes in there. Make sure I get all this stuff out of the way and tighten it off. Remember, this is a peanut bugger jig. Originally we called it the peanut bugger sandwich. I'm not positive, but I think Russ Madden may be the first guy to do the circus peanut, and then Kelly, of course, was envious and did the peanut envy. And since we do a lot of stuff with hydro hackle, we're going to do our peanut bugger. I'm going to cut those legs. I'm going to pull 2 off to this side, 2 off to this side. Same thing on my back set. These were all one strip of legs, 4 strands. Cut those. And that keeps these legs fairly out of the way while you're tying it. A little preening. Okay. The legs are nice and even. Now I'll do just a drop of zapper, whatever your flav is right there. Both sides. Like I said, you don't have to put the cone on there. Just adjust this fly for the depth of your fishing. And there we go. There's another one of our vertical jigs. A little adjustment there. A little preening. And just like the Mr. Wiggles, not a lot going on in there as far as body. The Marabou is going to give it a lot of movement. Okay? And the rubber legs, of course, are always good. But there you go. You've got your articulation in there. And there is your peanut bugger jig for vertical jigging. Snake River fly. And I'll show you another one here that we've done without the cones. This one is a little bit longer as far as the front body goes, and we've just put some lead eyes in there. So I'll have these in my box, teamed up. And for those deep hard banks that I'm going to be fishing this weekend, this guy, for some of the bigger the flats and the shallower stuff, I'll throw the ones a little less weighted. Like I said, this thing I wanted to land right in their face, do some wiggles going down like that, then a strip and then a fall and a strip and a fall. And I might only do that back a third of the way to the boat, and then I'm going to hit the next spot. And this time of year when fish are aggressive, this is a really good color and a really one of our favorite patterns for years for doing the vertical jigging. So there you have it, the old peanut bugger.